Uncle Andrew and his study vanished instantly. Then for a moment, everything became muddled. The next thing Diggory knew was that there was a soft green light coming down on him from above and darkness below. He didn't seem to be standing on anything or sitting or lying. Nothing appeared to be touching him. He thought he was in water, or worse, underwater. This frightened him for a second, but almost at once he could feel that he was rushing upward. Then his head suddenly came out into the air and he found himself scrambling ashore, out onto a smooth, grassy ground at the edge of a pool. Strangely, as he rose to his feet, he noticed that he was neither dripping nor panting for breath, as anyone would expect after being underwater. His clothes were perfectly dry. He was standing at the edge of a small pool, not more than 10 feet from side to side, in a wood. But it was not the only pool. There were dozens of others, a pool every few yards, as far as his eyes could reach. The trees grew close together and were so leafy that he could get no glimpse of the sky. All the light was green light, a green daylight that was bright and warm. It was the quietest wood you can imagine. There were no birds, no insects, no animals, and no wind. You could almost feel the trees growing. It was, as Diggory would describe later, a rich place. Surprisingly, Diggory was not frightened. In fact, he'd half forgotten how he'd come there or what he was supposed to do. He felt as if he'd always been there. After Diggory had looked around for a long time, he noticed that there was a girl lying on her back at the foot of a tree a few yards away. Her eyes were nearly shut, but not quite, as if she were between sleeping and waking. So he looked at her for a long time and said nothing. And at last she opened her eyes and looked at him.
I think I've seen you before.
I rather think so too. Have you been here long?
Oh, always. At least, I don't know. A very long time.
So have I.
No, you haven't. I've just seen you come up out of that pool.
Yes. I suppose I did. I'd forgotten.
Look here. I wonder, have we met before? I have an idea, a sort of picture in my head, of a boy and a girl like us, living somewhere else, and doing all sorts of things. Perhaps it was only a dream.
I've had the same dream, I think. Oh. Hello. What's that?
It's a guinea pig.
Odd. It has a yellow ring tied to it.
Just like the one you're wearing on your finger.
Oh. And you have one on your finger as well. Wait. Something is coming to me.
Yes. Uncle Andrew! I remember now. He was beastly and tricked me.
He tricked me as well. That's why I'm here. To take you back.
Is that it then? Do we take the guinea pig and go home? No. You might as well leave the guinea pig. It's perfectly happy here, and your uncle will only do something horrid to it if we take it home.
Oh, it's very nice here, you know. There's no hurry.
Stop it, Diggory. We've got to get back. Do you know how?
Well, I suppose we should take off the yellow rings, since they were the way in.
Done.
And now, we put on these green rings.
Right. And then what?
We go back into that pool, I expect.
But we haven't any bathing things.
We don't need them, remember? We didn't get wet on the way in.
Oh, I'd forgotten.
Ready to jump? On 3.
Right.
1, 2... Hang on.
What's the matter?
I've just had a really wonderful idea. What are all the other pools?
How do you mean?
If we can get back to our own world by jumping into this pool, Mightn't we get somewhere else by jumping into one of the others? Supposing there was a world at the bottom of every pool.
I don't understand.
What if Uncle Andrew was wrong about this world? What if this isn't a world at all, but a place between the worlds? Like the tunnel in the rafters leading between our houses. And the pools are like the doorways into the houses.
The wood between the worlds. Sounds rather nice.
I think we can get out of this place into jolly well anywhere. We don't need to jump back into the same pool we came up by. Or not just yet. Come on, Polly. Which pool shall we try?
Look here, I'm not going to try any new pool till we've made sure we can get back by the old one. We're not even sure it'll work yet.
Yes, and get caught by Uncle Andrew and have our rings taken away before we've had any fun? No thanks.
Couldn't we just go part of the way down to our own pool, just to see if it works? And then if it does, we'll change rings and come up again before we're really back in your uncle's study.
Can we go part of the way down?
Well, it took a little time coming back up. I suppose it'll take a little time going back.
Then let's try it.
And so they did. They agreed that if they saw Uncle Andrew or his study, Polly would shout, "Change!" and they would put on the yellow rings. On 3, they jumped into the pool.
3.
At first, they saw bright lights moving in a black sky. Then they saw the roofs and chimney pots of London. Then the walls of all the houses. Then Uncle Andrew, very vague and shadowy, but getting clearer and more solid looking all the time, just as if he were coming into focus. But before he became quite real, Polly shouted,
"Change!"
And they did change, our world fading away like a dream. Back in the wood between the worlds, they cleverly remembered to put a marker next to the pool through which they'd come, because they all looked the same, and then ventured to some of the other pools. After some discussion on which one they should try, they put on their yellow rings, counted to 3, then jumped into the pool. Nothing happened. They got their feet wet. After further discussion and debate, they realized that perhaps the yellow rings were only good for getting someone into the wood between the worlds, and the green rings got them out of it again. With their green rings on their fingers, they counted again and jumped into the pool. There was no doubt about the magic this time.